My name is Ryan and I come from a town called Malden in Essex. I commute to London from a little village called Hatfield Peveril, and I'd often cycle to the station until my bike was stolen by this lovely chap. I get the impression that a lot of people on the internet, including locals in Essex, don't like cyclists. So before we close this video, let me give you an incentive to keep watching. A financial incentive. If anyone can identify this man and is willing to write a written statement to the police that leads to his conviction, I'll give you £50, no questions asked. And as a gesture of goodwill to the person who shared the video, I'll also give you £50. So £100 up for grabs. Do I have your attention? Details of how to contact British Transport Police can be found in the description below, but I'll also put them on screen now, if you can pause. Spoiler alert, I actually know the name of the person who stole the bike. I know the people who worked with him, lived near him, and I know the village he currently lives in. How do I know all of this? Let me explain the whole story. The reason I'm making this video is not only for a plea for a written statement that can be taken to court, it's also to share my whole experience with the theft, how I use social media to identify the suspect, and dealing with the police. I'm hoping some people out there might find this useful. So my stolen bike in question is a tour bike called the Snelly Hoboat Leg. Hoboat Leg? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm more than aware that this bike is probably never going to be found, but it's a small world where anything can happen. Let's set the scene by going back in time, all the way back to September 10th, 2018. It was a lovely day and the sun is shining. I'd cycled in that morning and locking up my bike with 2 separate locks. It was a rather difficult day at work, as my previous week, my team and I had been told our jobs were getting outsourced. That actually being the least of my worries, as very recently I had 2 family member deaths. My frame of mind wasn't in a great state. I get off the train, I walk up the concrete steps to cross the platform to the bike racks. As I'm walking down the opposite side, I notice I can't see my bike. My stomach turns, and as I turn the corner, I see 2 broken bike locks and no bike. I compose myself and I go into the ticket office asking if I can get the CCTV footage, and lo and behold, only the British Transport Police can request such a thing. It's worth noting that train stations generally only keep their footage for 30 days, and coincidentally it can take 30 days for the police to complete their process for the CCTV footage, so it's very essential that you chase up both parties, as if there's a delay, you're not going to get that footage. I've since talked to a friend whose bike was stolen, and due to the slow work on the police's end, the CCTV footage had already been deleted. I've written this story in my head several times and put it to paper twice. My first draft, the majority of the story was complaining about the incompetency of the British Transport Police and how it took weeks to get a response, and the majority of the communications I sent were ignored or very partially answered. As I was reading back on the draft, I realised that this really wasn't the video I wanted to create. I could easily make a 20-minute video of all the problems I had, but I won't. At the end of the day, it's a bike, and the British Transport Police have far more important jobs to complete, so I understand that it isn't high priority. But there are a couple of key points that I do want to talk about. From day one, I was adamant that getting the video of the bike being stolen would be crucial to finding the thief. Despite asking British Transport Police 7 times, only photos were allowed to be released. Apparently a video would breach GDPR, but surely the same law applies for photos. It was never explained, and I gave up trying to understand it. It was difficult enough to get a response, let alone when I start asking questions about the law. And I'm also certain that if I wasn't so persistent in chasing my case, I wouldn't even got these photos. So it took almost 2 months for the photos to be shared on Twitter. Again, I understand the British Transport Police are busy, but I'm a little surprised to see how terrible they are. Hatfield Peveril Station has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cameras, and these were the best 2 shots? I find that hard to believe. Benefit of the doubt, maybe these were the best angles, but why did you have to crop the photos? By showing only half a profile of someone, we could be missing some crucial evidence. Maybe they have a distinctive pair of shoes or tracksuit bottoms, or maybe they have a peg leg, we just won't know. Going back to why I wanted the video in the first place, it is so much easier to identify someone using motion. I know myself I have a weird looking run, and people can tell it's me from a mile off. Another interesting point I found in my discussions with British Transport Police is they'll only look into your bike theft if the value of the bike is above a certain amount. which I think is ridiculous, and if I'd known this earlier I could get away with stealing anything. As long as it was below a certain value, I would have quit my job years ago. You know what, that gives me an idea. I guess the only way to catch a thief is become a thief. So, I teach myself to pick lock, break into a house, and only steal things worth less than £30. That way the police won't even look into the crime. Okay, I'm in an undisclosed house practicing my new thieving techniques. Diamonds, they're worth more than £30, I can't have them. Watch with matching cufflinks, I think the watch is worth more than £30, but the cufflinks, yoink. Monster Hunter Collector's Edition, I can't have that. A moose, ooh, I'll take this one. And the Gripmaster 3000 Edition Medium Tension, yoink. Now I think the real question is how did I find out who the supposed thief was? I'm aware of a concept called the 6 degrees of separation. This is the idea that all people are 6 or fewer social connections away from each other. As a result, a chain of a friend statement can be made to connect any 2 people in the world with the maximum of 6 steps. Here's a video from an educational channel I follow called Veritasium that can explain it much better than I can. I'll leave a link to the full video in the description below.
Imagine you have 44 friends, and each one of those friends has 44 friends who are not also your friends. And each of them has an additional 44 friends, each of whom has 44 friends, who again has 44 friends, and they have 44 more. Then, in a chain of just 6 steps, you would be connected to 44 to the 6, or 7.26 billion people, more than are alive on Earth today.
Knowing this, I realised if I had a photo or video, someone would recognise him if I could get the post shared enough on social media. Facebook being my go-to platform, I posted a plea, shared on some local groups, and lo and behold, I had 2 people contact me within a couple of days, both with the same name. So one of these contacts worked with the suspect and the other lived in the same village as him. I also had a mutual friend that knew of the suspect's friendship group, and he informed me these were the type of people to steal bikes. Unfortunate for me, both the people who identified him didn't want to get involved with the police and requested to remain anonymous. I censored the conversations I had of any identifying information and gave this to the police. Months and months went by, and at this point the police officer in charge of my case said there wasn't enough evidence and wanted to close the case. I think again my persistency paid off, as I refused to have the case closed without some sort of proper investigation. It was that week that the same police officer went on long-term sick leave, and my case got escalated to his boss, who was actually a lot more helpful. I had a phone call with her and she explained that although I didn't have enough evidence, something came to light that actually allowed them to make an arrest. I don't know what this information is, but it appears our friend here has been involved with the police at least a couple of times. The arrest didn't happen until February 2019, almost 6 months after the bike was stolen. Post the arrest, I talked to the arresting officer, who was 95% certain that the suspect was the guilty party, but unfortunately when it takes 6 months to get any sort of leeway, there was obviously no bike and in turn no evidence. I also found out when the suspect was in custody, all of his responses were no comment, as is advised by his solicitor. Innocent people don't do that. You may have noticed I've not mentioned the suspect's name. Despite being identified by multiple people known to the police, fitting the profile, I can't say 100% that it is him. Innocent until proven guilty. So during my conversations with British Transport Police, I did try to inform them that I would be making a video. I asked for advice of what could be said, but it was another point that I never got a response on. So I may have even said something that could jeopardise my case, so I need to apologise in advance if that is the case. I appreciate anyone, even if you don't live in England, sharing the video to get a little bit more exposure. Any advice, please leave in the comments below. And if you do know the suspect, be sure to mention to the police I was offering a reward and the name of the person you saw the shared video from. I appreciate you watching this video, and if anything comes of this video, be sure to make a follow up.